Hi and Assalamualaikum. Today I will be present MTES 1074, which is basic algebra. For the content, we have acknowledgement, appreciation, introduction, problem, presentation, conclusion, and reference. Next, for the introduction, my name is Muhammad Aminuddin bin Uthman. I am from Dungun, Terengganu. I am study at Institusi Pendidikan Guru Campus Kota Baharu. For me, mathematics is very fun. It is not burden to you. Before this, I just study depends on the textbook. But now, I can do quiz, presentation, video tasks, and do drama. In my primary school, I am not so good for mathematics subject. At first, I put my mind said that mathematical is hard. I was so down in my primary school. I feel like I'm not suitable for taking mathematics. While my high school, my teacher and my parents don't give up on me, giving motivation for mathematics subject. I throw away my mindset that told me that mathematics is hard. I did a lot of mathematics question for my end year of examination. Suddenly, I got A plus for mathematics subject. I was so over the moon that time. Now I'm falling in love with calculation and numbers. Sometimes it is not about heart, but it is mindset. What is algebra? So algebra is a part of math that use letters and symbol in a place of number. Algebra also can describe as solving for unknown in equation, modeling real world situation like calculating areas, distance, and financial scenarios, and understanding relationship between variables. Next, problem presentation. There is a businessman that wants to open a big new gymnasium. He said that open a gymnasium has the potential to significantly and change community being well. So it also promotes a healthier lifestyle by providing access to facilities that encourage regular physical activity. It becomes a gathering place where individuals can connect, share experience, and support one another in their fitness journey. Now we move to the first mathematical problem solver, which is linear equation. Linear equation in two variables in of the form ax plus by plus c equal to 0, in which a, b, and c are real numbers and x and y are two variables, each with a degree of 1. A variables in a symbol often use a letter like x, y, or z, and that represents an unknown value. Next, problem presentation of linear equation. To build a gymnasium, the businessman must have an accurate calculation for the cost and budget for gymnasium things, which are that businessman have $6,000 for buy gymnasium things. The businessman planning to build a gymnasium, including gymnasium things which are dumbbell, barbell, and treadmill. And the businessmen do not know the price of treadmill. Next, example of linear equation. Pak Belalang had bought some cakes, donuts, and burgers for his daughter's birthday party. He just bought 4 cakes, 5 burgers, and 12 donuts. He bought all of that item for $200. He forgets the price of the donuts, so he doing the linear equation methods to determine the price of donuts. The price for the cakes is 30 each, and the price for the burgers is 10 each. Step 1, we must consider a variable for each item, which is cake is C, burgers is B, and donuts is D. And then step 2, formulating the linear equation of the problems, which is 200 equal 4 multiplied by 30 plus 4 multiplied by 5 plus 12 multiplied by x. And then 200 is the money that Pak Belalang prepared for birthday parties thing, and X is the price of the donuts. Step 3, we must solve the equation, and then we got X is equal to 5. So we refer to the question back, which is the price of the donuts is 5 each. Next, we move to solution step of linear equation. Step 1, in my case, the businessman must define the price of the gymnasium equipment. Consider a variable of each items in gymnasium: D for dumbbell, B for barbell, and T for treadmill. Step 2, formulating the linear equation of the problem of this gymnasium. So my equation is 6,000 equal 50 multiplied by 10 plus 40 multiplied by 15 and plus 20 multiplied by x, and x is the variable for price for treadmill, and 6,000 is the amount that the businessman has to buy the gymnasium things. Step 3, solve the equation, and then we can get x equal to $295. So the cost of one treadmill is $295. So we move to analysis and interpretation of linear equation. From the problem solver, we can make a conclusion that the businessman may know the price of the treadmill. After he knows the price of the treadmill, he can plan next move for opening gymnasium smoothly. We move to the next mathematical problem solver, which is linear inequalities. Linear inequalities are mathematical expressions that describe a relationship between variables using linear equations with inequality signs. They involve expressions that can be written in the form: number 1, ax plus b less than c; number 2, ax plus b rather than c; number 3, ax plus b less than or equal to c; and then lastly, number 4, ax plus b rather than or equal to c. We move to problem presentation of linear inequalities. To opening a gymnasium, we must have a complete equipment of gymnasium such as dumbbell, barbell, and treadmill. First, the businessman must calculate the accurate space for giving suitable place for athlete. The total space of dumbbell and barbell in gymnasium is must not more than 25 square meters squared, and then space for treadmill fixed by 600 meters squared. Second, the businessman must calculate mass of each item of gymnasium equipment for suitability of the ground. The different mass between dumbbell and barbell is must not less than 5 kg, and mass of treadmill fixed by 100 kg. Thirdly, he must calculate the amount of each type of equipment for gymnasium. The amount following the total of barbell must not more than 10, amount of dumbbell fixed by 20 units, and treadmill fixed by 15 units. Now, we move to solution step of linear inequalities. So we have three objectives for linear inequalities, which is space, mass, and amount. And then for space, step 1, identify the sentences of linear inequalities. And then the sentences is: the total space of dumbbell and barbell must not more than 25 square meters squared. Step 2, write the three linear inequalities other than x is rather than or equal to 0 and y is rather than or equal to 0. And then the inequalities is x plus y is less than or equal to 25. Step 3, we must graphing the inequalities. For the first equation, we must identify the coordinate by using the replacement method, and we got two coordinate, which is x 0, y 25, and x to 25, and y is 0. Next, draw and sketching the graph and shading the common region that satisfy the constructed linear inequalities. And for the math, step 1, identify the sentences of linear inequalities, and the sentence is the different mass between dumbbell and barbell is mass not less than 5 kg. Step 2, write the linear inequalities other than x is rather than or equal to 0 and y is rather than or equal to 0, and the inequalities is x minus y is rather than or equal to 5. Step 3, graphing the inequalities. For this equation, we must identify the coordinates by using replacement method, and then we got two coordinates, which is x is 15, y is 10, and then x is 10, and then y is 5. Next, sketch the graph. Draw the line and shading the common region that satisfies the constructed linear inequality. And for the last aspect is amount. Step 1, identify the sentences of linear inequalities, and then the sentence is the amount following the total of barbell must not more than 10. Step 2, write the linear inequalities other than x is rather than or equal to 0 and y is rather than or equal to 0, and then the inequalities y is less than or equal to 10. Step 3, graphing the inequalities. For the inequalities y is less than or equal to 10 is at y is equal to 10. Next, we move to analysis and interpretation of linear inequalities. So we can make a conclusion by the businessman can imagine the space, mass, and amount for the gymnasium equipment, and the common regions that satisfies the constructed linear inequality can guide the businessman to make a decision for deciding space, mass, and amount of gymnasium equipment. Alright, the third mathematical problem solver is quadratic equation. So what is quadratic equation? A quadratic equation is a polynomial equation of the second degree, typically in the form ax squared plus bx plus c and equal to 0. The solution of quadratic equation can be solved by factoring, completing the square, and the quadratic formula, which is x is equal to negative b plus minus square root by b squared minus 4ac and over 2a. Next, we move to problem presentation of quadratic equation. To open a gymnasium, the businessman wondering that how many treadmills suitable for the power supply at that place. So the management has determined that the power supply of the treadmill by quadratic equation x squared minus 12x plus 35 and equal to 0, where x is present the number of treadmills that are deciding to purchase. The gymnasium aims to find out how many treadmills that the businessman can buy depends on the power supply at that place to minimize the cost. Next, we move to solution step of quadratic equation. Step 1. Use quadratic formula and calculate the roots. It will be x is equal to negative b, which is b is negative 12 plus minus square root negative b, which is negative 12 squared, minus 4ac 1 and 35, and then divide by 2a, 2 multiplied by 1. And then step 2, we must determine the total of treadmill can synchronize with the power supply, and then we must calculate it, and x is equal to 7 and x is equal to 5. And then we can make a conclusion by the businessman must buy 5 to 7 treadmill to synchronize for the power supply. If he buys more than 7 treadmill, the power supply cannot support for the treadmill to running smoothly. Next, we move to a mathematical problem solver, which is quadratic inequalities. What is quadratic inequalities? Quadratic inequalities is involve expression of form ax squared plus bx plus c is less than 0, and ax squared plus bx plus c is more than 0, ax squared plus bx plus c is less than or equal to 0, and lastly ax squared plus bx plus c is more than or equal to 0, where a, b and c are constants. So next problem, presentation of quadratic inequalities. For my case, to opening gymnasium, the businessman decided to buy treadmill less than 7 units to synchronize with the power supply. The equation is follow: 2 squared minus 12x plus 35 is less than 7. So the businessman decided to use quadratic inequalities method. Next, solution step of quadratic inequalities. We must use quadratic formula to solve this problem. So the inequalities is x squared minus 12x plus 35 is less than 7, and then we move 7 to the left hand side, and then it will be x squared minus 12x plus 28 is less than 0, where a is equal to 1, b is equal to negative 12, and then c is equal to 28. And then we must use quadratic formula, and then we applied it. It will be x is equal to negative b, which is b is negative 12 plus minus square root b squared, which is negative 12 squared, minus 4ac, and then it would be negative 4 multiplied by 1 and multiplied by 28, and then divide it all by 2 multiplied by 1, and then we can get the answer is 8.828 and 3.172, and then we can make a conclusion, which is 8.828 is rather than 7 and rather than 3.172. And then we move to analysis and interpretation of quadratic inequalities. The treadmill must not more than 7 units. So the range for the inequalities is 8.828 rather than 7 rather than 3.172. Maximum value that the businessman can put treadmill in the gymnasium is 8 units. The minimum value that the businessman can put treadmill in the gymnasium is 3 units. Since the calculation of the businessman comfort himself because the calculation from quadratic equation is running smoothly as quadratic inequalities. Next, we move to linear programming. What is linear programming? Linear programming can be viewed as part of a great revolutionary development which has given mankind the ability to state general goals and to lay out the path of detailed decision to take in order to best achieve goals when faced with practical situations of great complexity. Next, we move to problem presentation of linear programming. So, the businessman must widely use to calculate the actual value, either space, mass, and amount of the gymnasium equipment, the decision variable that affect the outcome of the objective function. The businessman must think a set of linear inequalities or equations that define the limits within which the solution must lie. So, the businessman decided to set a linear inequalities in 2.2 problem, which is linear inequalities. So, the businessman combines all the linear inequalities in 2.2, which is space, mass, and amount problem. And then we must have example of linear programming. So, an electrical store sells two type of refrigerators brands, which is R and S. The conditions for the sale of refrigerators in one day are follow: sale R and S brand refrigerators sold in at most of 80 units. The maximum number of R brand is 60 pieces. The minimum number S brand refrigerators is 10 pieces. Step 1. We must identify the sentences of linear inequalities. Number 1. Sales R and S brand refrigerators sold is at most of 80 units. Number 2. The maximum number of R brand is 60 pieces. Number 3 is the maximum number S brand refrigerators is 10 pieces. Step 2. We must write 3 linear inequalities other than x is greater than or equal to 0 and y is greater than or equal to 0. Number 1 is x plus y is less than or equal to 80. Number 2 is x is less than or equal to 60. Number 3, y is greater than or equal to 10. Next, for the step 3, we must graphing the inequalities. For the first equation, we must identify the coordinates by using replacement method, and then we can get the coordinates which is x is 0, y is 80, and then x is 80, y to 0. And then number 2, y is less than or equal to 60, line is at x is 60, and then y is greater than or equal to 10, line is at y is equal to 10. Next, sketch the graph. Draw the line and shading the common region that satisfy the constructed linear inequalities. So, we move to solution step of linear programming. Step 1. we must identify the sentences of linear inequalities. So, number 1, the total space of dumbbell and barbell must not more than 25 square meters squared. Number 2, the difference mass between dumbbell and barbell is must not less than 5 kg. Number 3, the amount following the total of barbell must not more than 10. Step 2, we must write 3 linear inequalities other than x is rather than or equal to 0 and y is rather than or equal to 0. Number 1 is x plus y is less than or equal to 25. Number 2 is x minus y is rather than or equal to 5. Number 3 is y is less than or equal to 10. Step 3, for the first and second inequalities, we must use a replacement method to identify the coordinate. For the x minus y is more than or equal to 5, and then we got the coordinate is x is 15 and y is 10, and another coordinate is x is 10 and y is 5, and another inequalities which is x plus y is less than or equal to 25 is x is 0, y is 25, and another one coordinate is x is 25 and y is 0. And then the third inequality, which is y is less than or equal to 10, line is at y is equal to 0. And then next, sketch the graph. Draw the line and shading the common region that satisfy the constructed linear inequalities. And for the analysis and interpretation of linear programming, now with the linear programming method, the businessman got the accurate value for each type of equipment to opening the gymnasium. The businessman can create a successful gym that meets community needs and stands out in the competitive fitness industry. And lastly, for the mathematical method of problem solver, which is absolute value. What is absolute value? Absolute value can be described by modulus equation. Absolute value refers to the distance of a number from 0 on the number line, regardless of its direction. In simpler terms, it's the non-negative value of a number. So we move to problem presentation of absolute value. So the businessman must want to know the difference between amount of treadmill and barbell. So he used absolute value method to get positive integers to reverse the amount of the difference. And then we move to example of absolute value. Solve the equation in modulus 2x minus 3 is equal to 5. So step 1, separate the equation into two equations. Step 2, involve the equation. Solve the case 1. 2x minus 3 is equal to 5, and then we solve it, and x is equal to 4. And solve case 2. 2x minus 3 is equal to negative 5, and x, it will be negative 1. Step 3, combine solutions. The solutions to the equation in modulus 2x minus 3 is equal to 5 are x is equal to 4 and x is equal to negative 1. So the final solutions to the absolute value problems are x is equal to 4 and x is equal to negative 1. So we move to solution step of absolute value. The difference between amount of treadmill and barbell is 5 and the amount of treadmill is 15. So the equation is in modulus t, which is treadmill, minus b, which is barbell, is equal to 5. Step 1. We must separate the equation into two equations, which is case 1, 15 minus b equal to 5, and case 2, 15 minus b is equal to negative 5. Step 2, we must solve the equation. So for the case 1, 15 minus b is equal to 5, and b you can get 10. For the case 2, 15 minus b equal to negative 5, and then we can get b is equal to 20. Step 3, we must combine the solutions. The solutions to the equation in modulus t minus b equal to 5 are b is equal to 10 and b is equal to 20. The final solution to the absolute value problem are b is equal to 10 and b is equal to 20. Next, we move to analysis and interpretation of absolute value. So, the businessman can make a decision. There are two amounts of barbells between treadmills, and it is 10 and 20 by using absolute value method. For the conclusion, with all of 6 mathematical problem solver method, which is linear equation, linear inequalities, quadratic equation, quadratic inequalities, linear programming, and absolute value, the businessman can plan to open a gymnasium with accurate calculation. His gymnasium will go long-lasting for a long time of period. The businessman can define clear goals for his gym's growth and regularly assess your progress to stay on track. I think that's all from me. Thank you.